Hello people, welcome back to the channel, and in this video I'm going to be looking at a one by Rich Cooper. This is his Clips channel, and it is saying how surrendering to female nature frees men. And in essence what he's really saying in this video is that you just need to be aware of modern women. You need to take things as they are and see them for what they are and not what you want them to be. And I think this is a trap a lot of men fall into, that they have this vision and they're sold this storyline about women who they just want to meet a man and fall in love, and women are just loving creatures and they're just nurturing, and you meet them and you get married and you live happily ever after. So I think by this point we all know that that is not quite true, right? I think we can all agree on that. For the most part, you look at modern women and it's just a car crash. Horrific for humanity, and I think women are on a pretty much downward spiral to the point of where how much worse can they actually get? It's like at this point we're living in times that are beyond sin. And realistically, this video is actually explaining that modern women are in for a shock, because the top rich men that all of these demons are chasing and looking to exploit and get money out of and destroy their lives in whatever way they can, so that the women can benefit and just take what they want from the man, or what they can, whatever resources or whatever it is that they want. Because they're always saying they want the top man who makes six figures and he's 6 foot this and he's got to have a yacht and a mansion and blah blah blah. Well, these women are going to be in for a rude awakening, because men aren't stupid, and especially rich men. And now what we're seeing is an evolution where men have got access to more information than ever on a woman's true nature. So in essence, to keep it simple, this video is showing you that the top men are taking steps to preserve their wealth from these demonic succubus feminist witches that just see men as an ATM machine and do not care about anything else. So that's going to come to an end, because as time goes on, men are getting wiser and wiser to it. And all of these six-figure men that all these women think that they're entitled to, that's going to be like the chances of you getting even around one of the men is like going to be like winning the lottery in the future, because men are realistically taking every precaution they can at this stage, and it's a thing that's going to happen more and more as time goes on, that they're taking as much precaution as they can around women, because they know just how dangerous they are to their lives in many ways. So we'll watch this video and I'll give my thoughts.
This video is really about surrendering and accepting the reality of the world that we live in. Got this long-term coaching client of mine, and I was initially going to record this for our community only, but I think that this topic is so valuable, I'm just going to kind of water it down a little bit and put it out for the general channel. So to kind of frame this for you, this coaching client of mine I've known for well over 6 months now. Very, very successful, highly seasoned gentleman, makes $2 to $3 million a year, has a very large net worth. He's a C-suite employee. When I say C-suite, I'm talking COO, CTO, CFO, like one of those types of positions, so very high up. He's also got a problem that he's stuck on where, well, here, I'll just read it to you so we can kind of frame this, and I'll give you some more background. So he says, struggling with the thought, what do you do when you know that 95% of women are going to just use you because of what you are? It's hard to find a complimentary woman, but most are utter train wrecks. High value is scarce. I don't want to waste my time. Says probably overthinking. Now, moving forward, I realize I have all the risk and the reward is very limited on his half. By no means have I gone MGTOW, as I like the female form way too much. I just have a little time for, he says, I have so little time for some of the nonsense or games that they play. I'm targeting 18 months of work to be able to move on to whatever I want to do. That's my focus, so I have to keep that as the goal. Would be a waste of 30 years of effort to quit. So to kind of wrap up on the frame story behind this, he's he's basically at the end of his career, and he's pretty much done. Like, he doesn't need to work. He really doesn't need to work for the rest of his life at this stage. But he's got such a large payout on the tail end. He doesn't want to jeopardize that. So he's not. So he's doing the right thing. He's not making women the focus of his life or a woman the focus of his life. His purpose, his mission still remains the focus of his life, which is one of the reasons why this much younger woman finds him attractive. She basically has her game together, right? She's got a good job. She's a professional. She's got her own place, but they live, quite far apart. And he's of course come to the realization that 95% of women will only love him for who he is. By the way, guys, if you want to grab these mugs, it supports the channel. They're in the store tab of the channel. So the first thing that I need to say is this video is really about surrendering and accepting the reality of the world that we live in, and not keeping your head up in the clouds. One of the realities that I must accept myself right now, I come out in the morning early to get some vitamin D, and if I sat out here all day, I'd be burned to a crisp. I just don't tan very well. You can see I'm a nice shade of red. It turns brown over time. But for me, the reality of this relationship I have with getting my morning dose of vitamin D needs to have a time limit on it. Like, I have to accept that it's not an all-day thing. And
yeah, so basically the point he's getting at, which the conclusion I came to at some point, whatever time it was, a good while back now, is that you have to come to the realization that with most women, you can't get into an entanglement or into any kind of relationship with a woman and just expect that it's going to last. Because the reality is, unless you want to just bury your head in the sand, that I think that it's quite clear now that women have a primal hypergamous nature where they're always looking for the best option, and that is something that they cannot switch off. So depending on how that woman feels, which can change like the wind, she will see another man as a better option, and she will sabotage the relationship that she has with you and just start treating you with disrespect if you are in the mindset that you want to be with her the rest of your life. Because women generally do not primarily operate that way, because they are geared primarily for survival and to constantly look for the best man. And nature, it's only the past, however many years or you want to say, that we've lived in a civil-ish society, but whereas for however long back in the past, women and men have lived in, raw kind of chaotic Viking kind of style times, like medieval, and there was no real clear civil society. You would have Vikings turning up on the shores out of nowhere and just wiping out a full area of men and then taking the women. So that has been nature's way for how long we do not know. It's only now we're living in more civilized times, and I think this is why women's hypergamy is just going insane, because I don't think women or men are designed to live in the modern times that we live in. It's just too civilized at this point to where women can literally do what they want with no repercussions or in any way. So women have nothing to really fear other than, can they get the best deal? That's it. And this is how they become so self-absorbed that all they can think about is just getting more and more and more and more, and their hypergamy is just literally insane. And you have to fundamentally understand that. I know I might be ranting a little, but the bottom line is the chances of you meeting a woman that will love you for you and bond with you just for you, never mind any other factors, and stay with you for the rest of your life, the chances of that, in my opinion, is slim to none. Because the bottom line is, that's not how women are fundamentally programmed, because nature is telling them they always have to be on the lookout for the best option for survival, and this is how they are wired. It's not optional, you see.
One of the things that guys struggle with is accepting the reality of female nature. And who and what they are. And this isn't a bad thing. So when you understand women for what they are, then you can proceed in logical, concise steps, make proper choices so you don't get burned. There's a large demographic out there of men that are frustrated, annoyed, they don't get very good results, they largely get ignored by women, some are involuntary celibate, and then they get mad at these realities. But the truth of the matter is this is consistent for all guys throughout history, and it's a good thing for sapiens as a race. If we weren't, specifically, if women weren't self-interested, meaning solipsistic and hypergamous, all they've really ever cared about throughout history is themselves and their children. And there's a reason for that. They're a lot weaker than men. They don't. They've got a third of the upper body strength.
And just to add quickly, even then, women turn their back on their own children, get abortions, etc. So, it's not a pretty sight, is it?
That most men do. They're not designed for physical, hunting and gathering, like we've been doing for millions of years before we created, roads and homes and electricity and cameras and stuff like that. This is only very, very new. So we wouldn't have been this successful as a species had women not been hypergamous and solipsistic. And all that really means is women always want to know that they can get the best deal they possibly can, and there has to be something in the relationship for her. That's what his mindset is 95% of women, when truthfully it's all women. All women will keep you around so long as you're useful. And that's a grim, that's a cold hard truth bomb. Some people can't take that. Some people have a very hard time digesting that jagged little pill. But when you accept it, when you surrender to it, and you understand that women don't love you in the way that you want them to love you. We as men want women to love us in the way that we thought that women should love us, based on how we've been brought up on a strong dose of, feminism and Disney movies. And, even as a kid growing up, watching TV shows like Home Improvement, for example, the father, the husband, was always a bumbling idiot, and, would always do something wrong in every episode. And, the woman was always frustrated with him, sort of thing. We've been fed a steady diet of men are these useful idiots, essentially. And we've become comfortable with that baseline notion of what we're good for. And that's fine. That's the place that we fill in society today. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. In fact, it's going to get worse for guys. The sexual marketplace is going to become more hostile towards men in general as time progresses. That's really what this toxic version of feminism is creating for this sexual marketplace. So you just have to accept it. So with that being said, when you surrender to the reality of the world, you can now live in it. You can now understand that it is what it is. The most popular sport in the world is football, also known as soccer in North America. But, if we put it in perspective, when somebody buys a ticket for a football match and they go to the stadium, they know what they're in for. They're going to see a game. There's two teams that are going to play. There's going to be a lot of noise, a lot of rowdiness, a lot of boos, a lot of screaming and shouting. And they understand what they're getting into.
And yeah, so just quickly, I think basically from what I get from what he's saying is that with women, you need to stop looking at it as every woman you meet, oh, this could be the woman of my dreams, this could be the woman that I'm going to spend the rest of my life for, and getting attached and getting emotionally involved with them. You need to start approaching it right. I've met this chick, I don't know her, I need to get to know her. So basically, initially, it's just a matter of having a good time. There's nothing more than that. And as we get to know each other a bit more, then I'll find more out about her, and I'm analysing her. And then you kind of are really, more times than not, can see that they're not anywhere near wifey material. So once you start to see this trend, it gets easier to have the mindset of, okay, I'm in a chick's company, let's just have a good time, not take it too seriously, and don't start thinking, oh, this could be the one. You see, this is where a lot of men go wrong. I've been guilty of it in the past, but you need to change your mindset to there's very rare women that are trustworthy and that are long-term relationship material. So most chicks you're going to meet are not going to meet that criteria. That's the way I view it.
and they're happy with the results. But the problem is most men don't understand what they're getting into with women. Most guys still hold an idealistic view of women that doesn't exist. When you understand that women can't love you in the way that you want them to love you, and that they can only love you for the use that you bring to the relationship, then everything can be okay. Now, he's smart, he's chasing excellence. He's obviously, putting his purpose ahead of all this other stuff. But the struggle that he has with is women only are with me because of what I can, bring to their lives, the value that I can apply to make things better for them. So accepting it and surrendering it is obviously the very first step. The next step is, once you've surrendered to the reality of it, you now put in place boundaries that are going to protect you and your wealth, more specifically your wealth, and any kind of legal issues from anything that women or family law can come your way. And what that really means is, in today's world, and I'm talking specifically to seasoned older gentlemen, so 40 plus, you should have had your kids out of the way by now. This guy, he's wrapped up, his divorce is done, he's paid a settlement, he has no further liabilities there, his kids are almost adults, he's just paying for college and university now. But as men, like, when you get to that point, you need to make sure that you don't live in a way that will be viewed as marriage by the state. And all that means is, if you live in a common law place where if you live together for a certain period of time and it's viewed as a marriage, then there's going to be a division of assets. If I live with somebody here without a cohabitation agreement in Canada, and things, the knot unties 5 years later and she wants to take half my shit, there's a bit of a legal battle that has to take place there, and I'm probably not going to fare very well at the end of it. So knowing that, as a man in that environment, I should never live with a woman in a way that the state would deem as a marriage, where it would apply family law, without a rock solid cohabitation agreement. I would rely on my lawyer for his best advice on that. And his best advice might be, just don't, the risk is not worth it. I can't make this bulletproof. So I'd have to have that conversation. That's what all men.
Yeah, so this is what the top men are starting to do. This is the precautions that they realise that they're having to take to secure and protect their wealth. So I think that moves like this are a great move for humanity, because if all top men start moving like this, then that will take away the wealth from most women, on a basis of exploiting men and ripping them off. Obviously, you're still going to get your Dubai guys who like the porta potty parties and flying, the rich men who fly women in just to use them. That'll probably always still be there, because men who are rich like to have fun, I guess, right? In whatever weird way they wish. But I think another problem that we really need to get on top of is the simp epidemic, the simpdemic, where there's so many. And I don't blame them necessarily, but there's like so many men who have little to no contact or even experience with women, that they are just in such a hyper state of desperation to just longing for a touch of a woman, and they build it up in their head that it's this amazing thing, that these are the people who feel the only fools, the only fans, and all kind of heinous stuff like this, where this funds these women and makes them super rich, and they're getting rich off poor men's desperation. And that's another problem, like all this whole sexualized culture where women literally are basically digital prostitutes, let's be real, and sell their body online and take advantage of men who can't get access to women. And I think that is one of the biggest problems that's pushing this whole heinous kind of a thing alongside feminism. I think they two, the simpdemic and feminism, is a very big problem in the modern culture, where it's just a recipe for disaster. So I think if we can get guys, the top men, stop letting themselves get exploited and stop letting women use them for money. But whereas if men who have got money want to use women, and women are up for it, if it's whatever, a transactional basis, that's always going to happen between adults. But we need to get on top of the OnlyFans nonsense, because that's just no good for humanity. Like, I think how many embarrassed children are going to be in the future where there's nudes of their mum all over the internet, etc. It's just not it. It's just not it.
men need to do. They also need to get their heads around domestic violence laws where they live, because there's some crazy women out there. You know, they say something like, 1 in 5 women are diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and that's quite dangerous to be around. If they falsely allege any kind of domestic violence, that can put you in jail and again separate you from your wealth. There can be problems that are involved with that. So knowing those key things where you live, there's a lot of rich guys out there that are seasoned, that have made money, that have access to wealth, and there's no reason why you shouldn't pay a lawyer, for an hour or 2 hours of their time to understand what family law looks like in your area when it comes to women, and then just playing the game in accordance with those laws. And if that means never living with a woman, or if you can live with a woman and have a cohabitation agreement to protect your assets, then do that. Then that's what you do. You just have to understand the rules of the game and then apply smart, intelligent steps to your life and the choices you make in that relationship. And as unromantic and as silly as that sounds, and there's always somebody that like chimes in, oh, it sounds like too much work, just pay a prostitute or just get a doll. Okay, well, that's the solution that some men take. But there's a good chunk of the population that is not interested in that solution, or they're not prepared to take that solution, or they feel they don't need to take that solution. And I fall in the latter. I mean, I basically plot the minefield for guys. I lay out the map and I say, here's all the mines. Now go do what you want. You want to walk through the minefield, do it. These are the areas that you can walk within, and this is how you do it without ruining your life or losing.
Yeah, it is really a minefield. Like, that is the bottom line. And I think at the end of the day, not all men like the quick, sleazy, easy women. That kind of heinous sort of it's just nasty. Let's be real, it's dirty and it's nasty. Women getting used day in, day out, and going with prostitutes or whatever. That sickens me. I would never go with a prostitute. So I'm more on the agreement with him that I think we need to get back to trying to push back to normal style, relationships. Bring back modesty. Bring back shaming women for their behaviour, not encouraging it. And just realistically, a lot of men don't really want to have quick sex. Not most men. Most men like it, but most men actually do want a relationship of some kind with a woman, and that is the reality.
Losing your wealth to family law or a crazy woman later on down the road. So, with that being said, I think I could bang on about this for a good hour. I'm going to reserve the detailed talk for our one-on-one.
And so he pretty much just goes on a bit there, but nothing too much more. But that's the reality of the outlook for these gold diggers. It's going to get harder and harder for them to dupe men and rob men, and they're going to have to come up with more scamming ways. And we'll see it, because women, there's a lot of evil women out there that just see men as ATMs, and they're cold, ruthless and heartless. And you need to understand that. And you need to educate yourself on how to see red flags in women, or you're in for a hard life. Some people say, I'm just too tired, that's all. Anyone else feeling the same way? Yep. There are women who will love you for who you are, but they are rare. Yeah, in this day and age, I think if you think about all the people you know, how many of them have been in a relationship with a childhood sweetheart? How many have been together for 10 plus years, 20 plus years? It just doesn't happen. Most people are splitting up and sleeping with each other's partners, and they're going with this ex, that ex. Everybody's sleeping with everybody. It's disgusting. Accepting women for what they are rather than what you wish they were is freeing. That's it. That is the bottom line, and that is what men need to understand. You need to accept women for what they are rather than what you wish they are. It is freeing, because then you're like, okay, it's not what I wanted, but now I know the reality, and I can stop getting conned and duped. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting video. Just, a little bit of maybe a change in the tide, or a little bit of movement and momentum back on the men's favour if the top men start to cut the money off from these gold diggers. Then what they're going to do, it's going to get harder and harder for them. If these top rich men are moving in ways where they're literally screening women and doing all kind of different precautions to protect their assets, and it's going to get to a point where all rich men who have got sense will be making women sign prenups, and then that weeds out the money grabbers as well. But like I said, OnlyFans is a big problem, and I'm sure there's others, but in my opinion, OnlyFans is that kind of a whole system is insane as well. But you know, the bottom line is men are waking up, and that's a good thing. So until the next time, take it easy and peace.